Hey there everyone, I'm Alliant, and I just want to start off by saying that I'm just excited to be able to have a lesson plan template even close to as thorough and as extensive as this one. I'm a new teacher. Obviously, I haven't seen a ton of lesson plan templates, but I have seen some. And I have been provided, different types of resources through my orientation at the school I'm working at. So I've definitely seen lesson plan templates. But the description and the detail and the advice that is within this template is unrivaled in my opinion. First of all, never seen a template even close to this long. But it wasn't that got me. It was the fact that the different sections that were outlining what they wanted you or what you wanted us to be able to stipulate, inside of those sections where we would put the work that we're going to do, there was even greater detail, even greater explanation, and even greater advice as to exactly what types of things should go in those sections and what types of things might be able to be serviceable and actionable for us once we get into that classroom. So the detail, not only of just those descriptions and advice, but also the detail of the different sections, because I've never seen a lesson plan that has, sections in it for pre-reflection and post-reflection. I've never seen a lesson plan template that has classroom management built into it. It's just impressive. Even specifically the differentiation in different learners sections, I have to fully admit, I actually didn't realize there was a difference between differentiation and diverse learners. To be honest, I thought differentiation was the way that we try to help all of our diverse learners. But then in reading the template, I learned just through that what some of those nuanced differences are. And the fact that within differentiation, I believe it's within the diverse learners section, that there's even sections for your different types of diverse learners and for you to put down the methodologies and the different theories that you're going to apply within that. So between English learners, advanced learners, at risk, like you literally gave us a section for everything that we possibly could need to figure out before doing the best we can in the classroom. So needless to say, there's no lesson plan template that I've seen that's even close to something like this. That being said, it's a lot. It's not only a lot to think about, a lot to plan, it's also just a lot of work to do. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. Like, any way that can help guide me and provide structure when I'm planning my lessons right now is unquestionably valuable to me, right? But it also makes me realize when looking at a template that, man, there's a lot more stuff that I need to be thinking about when I am crafting it. And what's crazy is that sometimes we get in the classroom and our lesson is on its feet and we're starting to doing, and sometimes we do some of those things that's in your lesson plan on the fly. And we do it just thinking of it in the moment. Sometimes that happens with differentiation, right? Or sometimes that happens with assessing the outcome or assessing a student's ability to practice in that moment. But I'm realizing that doing it in the moment, it's not enough. You should be able to, based on this template, you got to be able to plan that out in advance so that when it comes time for you to action it in that classroom, boom, you're ready to go. You don't even have to think about how to do it. And maybe you're pre-planning stuff that you realize is, not working, then you can do the on-the-fly switch if you want to, but having something in the back of your head or in your tool bag ready to go, it seems like that might be everything. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's doable. It makes lessons doable. That being said, obviously it's not going to be easy. I find a ton of different sections and a ton of different parts in this lesson plan template that already are and will continue to be super difficult for me specifically as an educator. Just to give you an example of some of them, one of them is the section talking about stipulating what educational theories you're going to apply, like constructivism or things like that in the classroom. Now, part of my apprehension about that definitely comes from the fact that I don't know a lot of educational theories. Like I'm still, for example, constructivism, I've only just now been introduced to it because I'm working and teaching at a constructivist school. And so now understanding the idea of a student coming in as an empty vessel, and then understanding the idea of making sure that the student isn't an empty vessel and that you're not some type of authority delivering information, but knowing they come in with their own life experiences and their own understandings of the world and their own learnings that they've either done by themselves or with others, and you're just going to use those to be able to build upon what they've already known. That's all new to me. So understanding how to apply new educational theories in the classroom is going to be really difficult. As I learn more, obviously it will become a little bit easier, but even then, I have to admit, my brain, for some reason I don't feel like it works that way, especially while I'm teaching, so far at least, and I'm hoping that this teacher program is going to completely help me with this, but so far I'm not the kind of teacher at this moment who's aware of the types of techniques that I'm using in the moment to help my students achieve a greater level of understanding. I only now realize that there's terms for all of these different types of things, right? And just through substitute teaching without ever studying pedagogy, I've developed different ways that maybe I found worked, or maybe I definitely saw good teachers doing, or stuff like that. I just never knew the terms for it, right? I didn't realize that some of this stuff all falls under like an umbrella of like extremely well thought out or articulated educational theory, stuff that I need to know, right? So being able to make that connection between what I'm applying and doing in the moment while teaching, and connecting that to the educational theories that undoubtedly created those practices that I'm using, that's gonna take a little while for me to figure out that conduit, that connection. And so the lesson plan template will help me make sure that I'm at least trying to think about that before I even start creating my lesson plan, right? Another section that I know for sure is just difficult for me as an individual educator is making sure that my students are always having measurable objectives. And I'm not sure why certain teachers and different educators have different strengths, but I know that is not one of my strengths. Like, my favorite part of teaching so far, and the part that gets my blood pumping the most, is when I get my students into like amazing conversation and wrapped up into topics that are engaging, and wrapped up into topics that they're getting their minds and their hearts exploring new avenues and making new connections, right? And I love that, and then feeding off that banter back and forth, and then me learning more about them and also from them about me and about just how we think about this world. And then coming up to greater understanding and developing like a greater community understanding of what we're talking about. Like, that's what I love. But then figuring out how to take like an amazing Socratic seminar like that, and then measuring it and making sure that they're achieving certain benchmarks and certain objectives within their growth, I don't understand yet how to connect my passion for that and also make sure that like I'm getting them to progress incrementally all the way, making sure that I'm getting those achievements done. So measuring their objectives and even coming up with the right kinds of measurable objectives that are accessible to all of my students, that's going to be difficult. And it's definitely something that I know I can learn, and I know there's tons of more resources out there for me to dive into. So like, again, I'm just getting my feet wet. But I'm starting to see that there are avenues towards becoming a better teacher right now that I can like instantly apply. And measurable objectives is definitely one of them. One last part of this lesson plan template that I personally know is going to be difficult for me, and I touched on it briefly, mostly talking about how impressed I was with the differentiation section and the diverse learners section in the template. But I also know that is one of the hardest things for me to not just make sure I'm doing, but also understanding the true needs of different students and where they're coming from, and making sure that, not only am I fulfilling their IEP and like the passport I've been given, and making sure that all of the specific, needs are being met, but then also making sure that that is connecting directly to what I'm hoping I can make sure my students are learning, and making sure that like all of those different IEP accommodations or different needs that I'm helping them with in that growth also are leading up towards the greater goal of like building that content and understanding inside of them that all the other students are working on too. And being able to do that in the classroom and figuring out how to do it with such a diverse group of learners in my classroom is really tough. And I'll be perfectly honest, my students' abilities and their proficiency levels are like wildly apart, and they're on a very large spectrum. And so figuring out how to access each one of them it's not just difficult necessarily, but it's also, it weighs on me because I want them all to learn. Not at the same rate. I'm not necessarily saying that I can expect that, but I want them all to be able to learn in their own way, make sure that they're growing. And I know I've been told by other teachers and other friends in the industry that like, you can't get every single kid there necessarily, but maybe you can, I don't know. And maybe that's not what they're saying, maybe I'm hearing them wrong, but just the concept of, like, you're not gonna get every single kid to the same place, or you're not gonna be able to necessarily always get every single kid like to fully engage and grow in that one class. And I get that, kids come in with different energies and experiences and having a different day and different emotional situations, right? So I understand that not every child is gonna be able to level up the way I want them to in my class in those moments that I want them to. But at the same time, like, wherever they're at, we got to figure out a way for them to grow. And so differentiation is challenging to me, and figuring out how to do it right. I don't even know if I've ever seen it done right, to be perfectly honest. So I'm really hoping that in this course we'll be able to, I know we'll be able to touch, and not just touch on it, but figure it out together more. But I am seriously waiting for that, because I need it like stat. I need it right now, and I want to make sure I do this job well. And I'm realizing only now that to do this job mediocrely is like, I don't know, it's not like super hard. It's kind of like simple, but do this job well is difficult and damn near insurmountable. But we do it anyway, and I couldn't imagine at this point in my life doing anything else that I would love more. Anyway, that's my rant, that's my ramble about this lesson plan template. I look forward to hearing all of your posts and all of your discussions about it too, and just, building off of each other so that we can all figure this out together. Have a good one, guys.